Greetings, remnant and online believers. Welcome to the Midweek Refuel, where we seek out the ancient wisdom, because modern wisdom won't stop the city from burning down if it means hurting an insane person's feelings. The modern world flatters madness, doesn't it? It calls madness self-expression now, and it congratulates the arsonist for his courage. But the ancients, a little more wisdom than we've got today, the ancients, and especially the Christian tradition, tell us something completely different. It tells us that sanity is not found in celebrating every delusion, but rather in breaking free of the closed circle of madness itself. Tonight, we're going to turn to G.K. Chesterton's Orthodoxy, where he shows us how both the materialist and the solipsist trap themselves in airtight little prisons of thought, and how the gospel bursts those walls wide open. Using Chesterton's definition for madmen, we find, at this point in the book, that there are two categories of madness. There is the materialist and the solipsist. The materialist believes that everything can be explained by matter and mechanism. He is the one that we have discussed the most so far in this book. For him, the universe itself is nothing but a watch, a machine, and you and I are just cogs in that wheel. Love is just chemicals. Morality is just a survival trick, and worship must be a brain glitch. Freedom, of course, is an illusion, and this materialist system, his system, is complete. It's whole. But it's absolutely suffocating, isn't it? Like a locked room with no windows in it. The solipsist, on the other hand, the solipsist believes that everything can be explained by himself. For him, the universe shrinks to the size of his own skull. His parents, they were just his imagination. His friends, all ghosts of his own making. Even the stars are nothing more than dots painted on the walls of his cell. His system is also complete, but it too is isolating. It's a dream that he can never wake up from. Now, I know that when I name them and define them, you are thinking to yourself, well, that sounds ridiculous. Surely nobody actually lives like that. But pause for a second and think. Haven't you heard the materialist's voice in our world today? Don't you hear it all the time? You are nothing but your DNA. Your choices are just the firing of neurons. Morality, of course, is just a social construct. Religion, that's just your coping mechanism. The materialist is alive and well. He's on university campuses. He's in pop psychology and in popular science books that explain away wonder as if explanation were the same as meaning itself. And haven't you heard the solipsist's voice in our world today? Of course you have. My truth is reality. What I feel defines what is real. If I say I am something, even a poached egg, then you must agree with me. That is solipsism. The collapse of the universe into the cage of the self. It's the madness of a culture that treats disagreement as some sort of violence and insists that the world must rearrange itself around one person's feelings. This insanity that we have foisted onto our children has caused for a couple, if not 3 generations that are not just confused, they are broken. We hand them iPads to raise them. And then we sit around wringing our hands wondering why they just stare and cannot speak to another human face to face comfortably. We drug them. We drug them before they're old enough to spell their own names, then wonder why they can't sit still in class. We tell them that there is no God, and then we wonder why they see no meaning in life. We tell them that they are accidents of atoms and evolutionary theory, and then wonder why they treat themselves and others like trash. We tell them that their feelings create reality. and then wonder why their reality collapses into depression, anxiety, and self-harm. The materialist madness says you are only a machine. And so, with that knowledge, we excuse violent criminals with, it's just their upbringing. We shrug when addicts destroy their families and their jobs and their careers and their lives because, well, it's just a disease, not a choice they're capable of wielding. We sell pills to children like candy, telling them their soul is nothing but chemistry. The solipsist madness says reality bends to your feelings. What you declare must be accepted. And so, a man can walk into a woman's locker room and we all must pretend not to notice him. A child can say out loud, I was born in the wrong body. And the state will threaten to take him from parents who disagree. Universities shout down truth with all their might with slogans like, words are violence, while actual violence in the streets is excused as mostly peaceful. It really is time to shut down the universities, isn't it? And create something better, isn't it? A guild system? I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I know what the problem is. Why in the world would you fork over $50, $60, even $100,000 to have your kid brainwashed and driven further away from God, further away from truth, further away from sanity? We pay 6 figures for universities to turn out graduates who can't tell the difference between a fact and a feeling. You can get the same for free by spending a week or a month on Twitter. Instead of producing wise men and women, the universities manufacture fragile egos who can't handle a syllable of truth without having a breakdown. And let's not skip the everyday rot. Rudeness. Oh, we've got a plague of rudeness. Well, why not? Why respect you if you're just dust? Why inconvenience myself if I am the center of the universe? That's why neighbors don't speak anymore, why road rage boils, why children mock parents and parents despise children. A society that abandons reverence soon abandons courtesy altogether. And then there's pornography. Holy cow, the perfect hybrid of these insanities. The materialist, he tells you that sex is just chemicals, so porn turns beauty into dopamine loops and pixels. The solipsist says, only my desire matters, so porn reduces human beings into disposable mirrors of lust. The result? It's a culture choking on loneliness, choking on impotence, and choking on despair. We got so much porn, we got ED running rampant everywhere, and nobody will say why. Porn is not freedom. It is an appetite devouring itself. This isn't just bad philosophy. This is generational abuse. Somebody needs to be held accountable. Chesterton saw it before it fully arrived. Both the materialist and the solipsist build airtight systems, don't they? Perfect circles of logic. But a circle becomes a noose when you live inside of one. The serpent does not become eternal by eating its tail. It dies, choking on itself. But here's the good news. The cross of Jesus Christ is not a circle. It breaks the closed system. Its beams stretch outward to the world and upward to God. Where materialism suffocates and solipsism isolates, the cross itself redeems and restores your humanity. It tells us you are not a machine. You are not alone. You are not an accident. You are made in the image of God Himself, and Christ has died and risen to make you whole. Only in Christ is the madness broken, the circle shattered, and the children set free. You may think that others being insane is fine. Well, that's over there, right? That you can just live and let live? We've proven that wrong in my lifetime. But madness never stays in the asylum, ever. It leaks out into the streets. It seeps into the classrooms. It infiltrates workplaces. What starts as a private lifestyle becomes a public law. The homosexual activist once told us, What happens behind closed doors won't affect you. Look around, folks. Now it's front and center in our schools and our corporations and our entertainment and our laws, right in our children's faces. From drag queens in kindergartens to rainbow parades in our streets, to entire industries bowing down during Pride Month to make money, nothing else. We are catechized every single day into affirming insanity. We can't even watch a commercial for toothpaste or cereal without being told to celebrate what God himself calls sin. You remember the Sprite commercial? It's a soda, for crying out loud. The materialist madness reduces all of us to machines. It dehumanizes us. It steals from us. And it shows up like this. Well, marriage and family, they're treated as outdated mechanisms easily replaced with cohabitation, divorce on demand, or test tube children. Workplaces hand out antidepressants like coffee because broken souls are treated as chemical glitches, not human tragedies. Entertainment numbs the mind with algorithmic content designed only to manipulate dopamine and keep you scrolling. The solipsist madness tells us reality bends to our feelings. And it shows up like this. Schools now teach children to distrust their bodies and their identities, even encouraging them to transition behind their parents' backs. Time to rise up, parents. No more of that. Workplaces compel speech codes. They use the pronouns, affirm the ideology, and if you don't, you risk your job. Media mocks anyone and everyone who stands for truth, and they mock them as hateful while glorifying every new delusion as heroic. And for the average person, for the average human being, it means that you are forced to live inside of someone else's madness. Constantly. Your taxes pay for this indoctrination. Your kids are catechized by it at school for 12 straight years, more if you had them in daycare. Your workplace trains you in it. You know the meetings I'm talking about. Your entertainment preaches it. This is how Chesterton's madmen have escaped their airtight little circles and swallowed the culture whole. The ordinary man is no longer allowed to be ordinary. He must bend, he must affirm, he must comply, or be cast out as a heretic to the secular. If you're tired, and I know I am, if you are tired of being forced to live in an asylum, tired of the madness being shoved in every corner of our lives, then click the like and subscribe buttons. Every time you do, it helps push back against the noise and put truth and reality in front of more and more people who I believe are ready to wake up. Let's turn now to the book itself. Of course, it is not only of the materialist that all this is true. The same would apply to the other extreme of speculative logic. There is a skeptic far more terrible than he who believes that everything began in matter. It is possible to meet the skeptic who believes that everything began in himself. He doubts not the existence of angels or devils, but the existence of men and cows. For him, his own friends are a mythology made up by himself. He created his own father and his own mother. This horrible fancy has in it something decidedly attractive to the somewhat mystical egoism of our day. That publisher who thought that men would get on if they believed in themselves, those seekers after the Superman who are always looking for him in the looking glass, those writers who talk about impressing their personalities instead of creating life for the world, all these people have really only an inch between them and this awful emptiness. Then, when this kindly world all round the man has been blackened out like a lie, when friends fade into ghosts and the foundations of the world fail, then when the man believing in nothing and in no man is alone in his own nightmare, then the great individualistic motto shall be written over him in avenging irony. The stars will be only dots in the blackness of his own brain. His mother's face will be only a sketch from his own insane pencil on the walls of his cell. But over his cell shall be written with dreadful truth, he believes in himself. All that concerns us here, however, is to note that this pan-egoistic extreme of thought exhibits the same paradox as the other extreme of materialism. It is equally complete in theory and equally crippling in practice. For the sake of simplicity, it is easier to state the notion by saying that a man can believe that he is always in a dream. Now, obviously, there can be no positive proof given to him that he is not in a dream, for the simple reason that no proof can be offered that might not be offered in a dream. But if the man began to burn down London and say that his housekeeper would soon call him to breakfast, we should take him and put him with other logicians in a place which has often been alluded to in the course of this chapter. The man who cannot believe his senses and the man who cannot believe anything else are both insane. But their insanity is proved not by any error in their argument, but by the manifest mistake of their whole lives. They have both locked themselves up in two boxes painted inside with the sun and stars. They are both unable to get out, the one into the health and happiness of heaven, the other even into the health and happiness of earth. Their position is quite reasonable. Nay, in a sense, it is infinitely reasonable, just as a 3-penny bit is infinitely circular. But there is such a thing as a mean infinity and a base and slavish eternity. It is amusing to notice that many of the moderns, whether skeptics or mystics, have taken as their sign a certain Eastern symbol, which is the very symbol of this ultimate nullity. When they wish to represent eternity, they represent it by a serpent with his tail in his mouth. There is a startling sarcasm in the image of that very unsatisfactory meal. The eternity of the materialist fatalist, the eternity of the Eastern pessimist, the eternity of the supercilious theosophist and higher scientist of today is indeed very well presented by a serpent eating his tail, a degraded animal who destroys even himself. If the world insists, and I have no reason to think it won't, on staying in the asylum, I think they like it there. I cannot follow them there. My house is walking out of the asylum. My family is choosing sanity. If culture insists on chaining itself to madness, well, we're not going to be the ones holding the shackles, are we? And here's what that means. Disney, gone. You want to catechize my kids in sin and call it storytelling? I don't think so. Do it without my wallet. I'm not paying for Mickey Mouse in drag or for princesses preaching rebellion. You can fix it. I'm never coming back. That bridge has been burned. Pornography? Gone. That snake eats its own tail and devours every man, every woman, and every marriage it touches. It doesn't get a foothold in my life. Woke corporations? Gone. If you can't sell me soap without a pride sermon attached to it, I'll find a bar of soap somewhere else. Mainstream media? Out. I don't need talking heads lying to me with a straight face about men having babies and riots being mostly peaceful. Universities? Out. Parents fork over 6 figures for 4 years of indoctrination. And what do they get back? They get back a fragile ego who thinks truth is hate speech. Folks, you could get the same intensity faster and cheaper by locking your kid in a TikTok feed for a month. Pharmaceutical quick fixes? No thank you. My children's souls are not your chemistry experiment. We'll raise them to be disciplined and healthy, not sedated. Godless music and entertainment? Out. If it mocks Jesus Christ, glorifies filth, or treats life as meaningless, it won't be discipling my spirit or my family's spirit. Now, I know some of you will sneer at me now. What difference will that make? What's your little dollar against Disney and their whole kingdom? Let me be crystal clear with you then. Those voices that say that, they are not your friends. They are your enemies. They are not your allies. They are a part of the problem itself. They are voices of despair, not voices of the faith. Yes, you love them. We need to love them as Christ commands us to love them. But you also need to beware of them. Cancel their influence in your life because their words are siding with Goliath against David. Their counsel is designed to keep you in the asylum, not walk you out of it. And of course, there will be some who sigh, Pastor, the cost. Isn't the cost too high? Do I really have to give all this up? Really? The cost is what? You lose another Marvel sequel when the villain is straight, but the superhero's sidekick is proudly confused? Or perhaps you lose another Disney princess with a TikTok account. Oh, I know. You lose another Bud Light that tastes like it was poured through a gym sock. Oh, the tragedy. Brothers and sisters, that's not sacrifice. That's called common sense, or at least it used to be called common sense. The so-called losses are nothing. The giants are everywhere. You gain your sanity. You gain your children's innocence and free them of the anxiety this world wants to program them with so that they can control them when they're aged. You gain the joy of knowing your money isn't funding the very madness that you preach against. That's not a burden. That is freedom in Jesus Christ, and don't let them lie to you about it. We've seen David's knock down giants before, haven't we? Bud Light mocked what is sacred, and people turned away, billions of dollars lost. Target went after children, and families said no more. Their sales tumbled. Disney thought it was untouchable, and its stock dropped like a rock. It needs to sink back into the swamps of Florida. Ordinary people saying no more toppled giants the world thought were invincible. So don't tell me it makes no difference. It makes all the difference in the world. My little sling stone may not topple the giant by itself, but it keeps the giant out of my life, out of my yard, and out of my house. And when enough of us stand up, finally, we find out Goliath isn't so invincible after all, is he? And listen, if you're not guarding your home, the enemy will gladly do it for you. A Christian who lets the world raise his kids unfiltered, undefended, is not walking in faithfulness behind Jesus Christ. That's not me being harsh. That's the scripture itself saying if anyone does not provide for his relatives, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. We've got far too many Christians who nod along. Yes, Pastor, the world is insane. Chesterton was right. Culture is collapsing. But then they walk out the door and hand their money, their time, and their children right back to Moloch, right back to the asylum doors. This is not Christian faithfulness. That is negligence of the highest order. It's why our country looks like it does. It's time. It is time to stop being satisfied with understanding that there's a problem. You don't get points for diagnosing the cancer if you keep feeding the cancer. You take action, even if that action only changes your house. Even if it's just $1 withheld, one screen turned off, one child taught truth instead of lies. Faithfulness is not about fixing the whole culture. It's about refusing to let the culture own you. When you guard your home, you build a stronghold of sanity in a world that's gone insane. And if enough Christians did that, think about it. If enough people who carry the name Christian with them, if they did that, if enough fathers and mothers actually lived like it mattered, then we'd see not just homes saved, but maybe even the entire culture turned. And even if it isn't, our children will inherit something the world cannot take from them, a home where Christ is king, where truth is told, where sanity is sacred, and where lies don't get the final word. That is what it means to step out of the circle out of the asylum. That is what it means to walk free. That is what it means to be free in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. The first war cry of the newly sane, the shout of Nebuchadnezzar after he finally looked up from his grass and confessed that the Most High rules. Christ is King. Hail to the King.